Hello and welcome. I'm excited to introduce you to this episode of Viewpoint on the Ask Krishna channel. Today I'm speaking with an individual who is known for his depth of knowledge. He is known for his quest to go deeper into spiritual and philosophical topics. I'm referring to Vidwan Shri Jayakrishna Nelamangala, an inquirer into the three main scriptural authorities, the Brahma Sutra, the Upanishads, and the Gita. Shri Jayakrishna Nelamangala is a scholar of Vedanta. He comes from a lineage that follows the traditions and teachings of Acharya Madhva, the proponent of the philosophy of duality. Shri Nelamangala regularly contributes to the discussions on the comparative aspects of different philosophical systems. His command over the English language makes it easy for the broader population to understand those who are not too familiar with languages like Sanskrit or Kannada or any of the regional Indian languages. I've known this amazing individual for years, have a lot of respect for his knowledge, and I'm always keen to listen to his perspectives. I hope you would do so as well. The discussion we are going to have today and now is on a variety of topics. We cover free will, the nature of God and choices, destiny, karma, and moksha. It'll be a packed hour that we will spend with Jai Krishna. Through these episodes of Viewpoint, my focus is to elicit a perspective, not necessarily right or wrong, or for that matter, it is not even about me agreeing or disagreeing with the viewpoint of the individual. My goal is to bring the best of the thoughts out and let you further contemplate and come to your own conclusions and discussions. Without further delay, please join me on this amazing dialogue with Sri Jayakrishna Nelamangala. One last thing before we go further. Don't forget to subscribe to the Ask Krishna channel and support this channel to have many more of these spiritually rich videos that allow you to live a life of faith but free from fear and live a life of common sense and rationality. Here's Sri Jayakrishna Nelamangala. A very good morning to you, sir. Namaskara. Thank you for taking the time for this, hopefully an amazing discussion where there's no right or wrong answer. It'll just be perspectives that we will cover. So really looking forward for this discussion, and I'm sincerely hoping it'll be of immense benefit to the contemporary community.
I hope so too. Thanks for inviting me and having me on your podcast.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So as we were discussing earlier, the topic for today, which will be, it's going to be, as I say, a medley. It's a combination, a spaghetti of everything, as they say. And intentionally, I wanted to make sure we do it that way. Because for an individual who is on a spiritual path, who is investing time to learn about the scriptures, give it some reflection and contemplation, pretty much then you could say what comes next. You could at least, they could anticipate that. But for somebody who is not, then it is kind of a world of confusion and questions that come up. So I would rather focus on that type of entity, which is they may be on a spiritual path or they may not be, but let's see if we can clear some of those confusions and questions.
Sure.
So let's start with this very fundamental topic of free will and choice. We say everything is because of the grace of a divine, but then the next action that you are taking, which is of picking a cup of coffee or even this discussion, is something that you decided to do. You made sure your schedule of the day is allocated in such a way that we are talking and everything. So where does then free will and where does divine making the decision come into play there?
All right. You know what? Because you talk about divine, let me start out with a prayer. All right.
Sure.
योऽन्तः प्रविश्य ममाजिमां प्रसूप्तां सञ्जीवयति अखिलशक्तिधरः स्वधाम्नान्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः.
Krishna
Well,
Arpanam.
because you because we mentioned the divine, there are certain things we need to, you know, clarify before we do other things.
Uh-huh.
So we all have, some idea of what the divine is, right? Even for people who deny that there is a divinity, right? Even they know what they are denying, right? So, in other words, that concept either in the Purvapaksha form or in Siddhanta form, everybody has one, right? But the concept that they think they have, where did they get it from, right? Why I'm saying this is because the divine concept comes from Veda. That's where it all originates, right? It belongs to Veda, basically. Because in the mundane world, right, we don't have the concept of Sarvaniyamakatva, for example, right? Or Sarvasrishtikartva and all, because you take any single object, such as milk, right? We know the cow, we know what it eats. It eats grass and gives milk. Where is the question of God in all this, right? Some things. So that's what you were saying. We arranged this meeting and we're doing it. Where is the question of God in all this? Similar to that. Well, this is where Vedanta answer differs from the mundane answer, right? So we often mix the two, right? In the sense that what should have been obtained from Veda, we somehow get it from outside of Veda and mix that concept with the Vedic concept. So we should try to avoid that. Being serious students of Shastra, right? We shouldn't mix up ideas here. So let's keep it clean. That's number one. Because everything, when it comes to God, right? The way Veda puts it,
Hmm.
that is exactly how we should understand that concept. Nothing more, nothing less. Right? Please remember there are different stages of understanding the divinity. Right? The very first stage is the stage of faith. We believe that there is something. Right? We believe there is free will. We believe there is no free will. We believe there is no God, and so on. So every one of them is equally a belief, nothing more, nothing less. Right? That is first stage. But then for somebody, that is not enough for him because there is something in him, right? Or some kind of fittedness, right? That makes him not stay there. So he wants to find out, he wants to reason. So that brings us to the second stage. Let's call it the stage of reason. In that stage of reason, you can say there is scientific reasoning, which we are all familiar with because our modern upbringing is in scientific thinking, and we can't get away with it. And there is nothing wrong about being looking at science. After all, science has solved more problems on our day-to-day basis, including this chat we are having on the internet. Vedanta didn't create the internet, science did. So let's give it to them, right? Then we have that is 2A, scientific thinking, scientific reasoning. And then there is a 2B, which is the what we call Darshana Sampradaya. Right? Darshana simply means the schools of thought that are out there. Right? Starting from Charvaka, Buddha, Jaina on the Nastika side, and then Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Purvamimamsa, and then finally Badarayana Darshana, also known as Vedanta. Right? Those are the schools of thought. So there is a certain thinking in that. And Vedavyasa himself has taken up these different schools of thought, right? In under Brahma Sutras, right? Under this in the second chapter, there is a thing called Samayapada. Samaya simply means schools of thought, right? Samaya is a school of thought. So he's examined, Seshwara Sankhya, Nirishwara Sankhya, every one of them, yoga is pratyukta and all. So he has taken yoga also. So whatever the name we give today, for a certain thought, right? He may not have called this by the same name, but that doesn't matter. Nahi namni vipratipati. There is no controversy regarding what you have called it, right? The controversy is what it is. That's where the controversy is. Now you can call it whatever. So that is the second stage of Darshana Sampradaya. Now, because each one has come here, each one is a great thinker. Not that they're all independent thinkers. They thought through what they could. They examined what was available to them with the available tools they had, right? And what was needed at that time, many times, right? And came up with their own philosophies, because they were not happy with what was given to them. So, in fact, nobody, says, "Oh, let me start a new school of thought." That's not how it works. They all given a certain meaning of Veda. Say, Veda teaches this. Now, when they look at it, that's not what Veda teaches. They're unhappy about this, whatever is given to them. So they will reinterpret. Largely, Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita. These are what generally are called Prasthanatraya. So by reinterpreting these three, a school of thought happens much later when there is a following and they have their establishment, and then a school of thought happens much later. But initially they just write a new bhashya based on where they found they were not satisfied with what was already there. Correct? So that's how schools of thought form. That is the Samayapada. And that's why if you see the Darshana Sampradaya, each one has examined others. Shankara examines Buddhism, Madhva examines Shankara, and so on. So it goes on like that. I come from the Madhva school, as you know. So I am most likely, whatever I'm going to say, very likely is limited to my knowledge coming from that one school of thought. All right? I'm not a generalist, so to say. I'm a mediocre student of Madhva Siddhanta. That's all, nothing more. Then there is the second stage of reasoning. The third stage is in these Prasthanatraya, they all often refer to Shruti, coming from Veda, right? And so, in fact, in Madhva Siddhanta, the very concept of Brahman, right? Brahman is Shrutyukta. He insists that Madhva. Yeah. For us, Brahman is Shrutyukta. I mean, however Veda has given it. That is the idea here. Pramanam Veda Evaikaha, he says, the only Pramana for Brahman is Veda, and that's it. So all others follow Veda. That's when they become Pramana. Right? Paurushaya, any Paurushaya Grantha, right? Authored text, becomes a Pramana when it follows Veda. Otherwise, it gets its validity in three ways. Pramanyam trividam mahat, in the words of Madhva. One is aptavakyataya, right? One who is an apta. Apta means one who knows it all, a sarvajna, someone like Vedavyasa. Shruti Mulataya, by sticking itself to the Veda. Just repeat what Veda, if Veda says, Anoraniyan, Mahato Mahiyan, use the same words, write it in Kannada. Purandaradasa has done it. Anoraniyana, Mahato Mahiyana. He has simply repeated it. That's how it gets its validity, because it comes from Veda, that concept. Then the third one is Yukti Mulataya, by being logical. What kind of logic? It is Vaidika logic. It is Veda Vyasa that extracted the logic that was already hidden in the Vedas and gave it to us in the form of Brahma Sutras. Right? So when these three type of validities, there is only one work in the entire world, and that is Brahma Sutras. No other work has this three. Atho naitadrisham kinchit pramana tamamishyate. Again, Acharya. That's why this is the best pramana that there is. So we use that Brahma Sutras as the standard measure and come to all other conclusions. Srimad Madhva stresses this fact many times all over the place, that Shabja Jatasya Sarvasya Yat Pramanascha Vinirnaya, he says in Brahma Sutra Varsha, that anything and everything of a nature of sound, right, Shabda Jatasya, their validity is given by a measure that's provided by Brahma Sutras, and so on, right? So, and so Brahma Sutras occupy. That's why it is Pramana Tama. It is used as the Nishchayaka, whereas something like a Ramayana or a Mahabharata or any other literature that we do know of, they are all Nirnaya, right? Nirnaya, Nirnayaka is Brahma Sutras. For this idea of Nirnaya comes from Veda actually. Not many people know this. Atha parayaya tad aksharamadigamyate, says one Upanishad, Mundaka, for those who learned it. In there, what is that paravidya? Srimad Madhva says, Atha paravidyakyam chakre shastram anuttamam. It says, writing in Anuvyakya. That is, this paravidyakyam, this Brahma Sutras are called paravidya. Veda has called it paravidya. And Veda Vyasa wrote them. So where are we going with all this, you may ask? Well, that's why even to understand Veda, you needed Brahma Sutras. You can't just take, Veda without Brahma Sutras and try to understand Veda. You will be lost, first of all. And doing that way, taking the literal meaning of Veda, or, trying to give mundane meanings to Veda, we have done all that because that's all the capacity we have. But Veda Vyasa has given us how to understand Veda, and that is called, when you do that, you know the Shruti nature of Shruti. We call it Shrutitva, right? The Shruti nature of Shruti is unknown until Brahma Mimamsa or Brahma Jignasa is applied on Veda. Got it? So that will provide you the highest knowledge. Right? So that will be your fourth stage of, what shall I say, the stage of inquiry. So the first stage is faith, second stage is all reason, scientific reasoning and darshan sampradaya reasoning, and third stage is Shruti directly, and then fourth stage is Brahma Jignasa or Brahma Mimamsa. That will be the fourth stage and the final stage, wherein everything else gets examined and settled. All right?
Got it. Yeah. So it's still I completely follow where you are going with this. I know you went deep, which hopefully the listeners will keep track of it. There was a inbuilt assumption though there, if I would call it. And I think for the contemporary person that matters a lot. So in between, when you said you come from the Madhva lineage and you have followed the Madhva school of thought,
Mm-hmm.
was that selection of a Madhva lineage and Madhva school of thought? Of course, it came from your Sampradaya and Parampara, so that is
Mm-hmm.
there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But still, there was something there that made you continue on the Madhva lineage and the Madhva school of thought when you could have equally said, you know what, let me spend time to understand Sri Bhashya of Ramanuja, or I'll spend time understanding Shankara's works. But you rather said, no, I want to stick to this. I link it
Yeah.
back to that free will and choice. The
Mm-hmm.
reason is, yes, even if the source of it is in the Brahma Sutras, let us say,
Mm-hmm.
but for the common man, the common human, where did that come from? Why did Sri Jayakrishna Nelamangala make that choice as to why he should stick with Madhva only?
Yeah. I mean, initially, right? Like every other faith, we all
Correct.
start with faith, and there is nothing wrong. We all have to start somewhere. So when you are a 2 year old, somebody shows you a picture of God and say, hey, God. So we all start there, and there is nothing wrong in that. So, but don't stay there. All we are saying is it's okay to start anywhere, but it is not okay to end where you started. Right? So you are supposed to make progress here. And we are only talking about those that have some kind of fittedness to do this. There is definitely, when it comes to knowledge, right? It's never given on a straight line, right? There are many subhashitas on this. The teacher teaches the same class the same way, but few of them grasp it well. Few others don't get it at all. And there is about 80% media, they get it, plus or minus, like that. This is how knowledge is always distributed on a bell curve, right? So why this? As serious students of Shastra, we are interested in that 10% who got it well, right?
Mm, mm,
We are not terribly interested in people who didn't get it.
mm.
Because what is the point in following them, right? After all, we are after knowledge, and we would rather follow somebody who has got it, right? If you want to learn tennis, go to a good tennis player. Why do you want to go to somebody who doesn't know how to play tennis? Right? It's as simple as that. So also Vedanta. So we're only interested in what jnanis have done. So, but in Madhva school, coming back to your question, am I a Madhva because I was born into a family, or am I a Madhva by conviction? Right? I'm a Madhva by conviction for sure. But the advantage of studying Madhva Bhashya over other Bhashyas, for example, if you take Shankara Bhashya, Ramanuja Bhashya, they wouldn't be referring to Madhva at all because they were all, as you know, Shankara came in the 7th century, and Ramanuja came in the 11th, 12th century, and Madhva came in the 13th century. So they had no exposure to something that would happen centuries later, right? So they could not have had. But whereas Madhva had the advantage of all these works are available to him to be examined, right? And he did. He bounces off all his ideas, especially against Advaita. He has done that. So for us, we basically, when we study Madhva Bhashya, we along with it, the at least the major tenets of other schools all come into picture automatically because it's part of our study.
Now, back, so when you were talking about the bell curve and you said, yeah, we are as serious seekers, we are after that 10% where we continue to evolve through that inquiry. And you were humble enough to say, even with all that inquiry you have been doing, you're still a mediocre student of Madhva. You were humble enough to say.
Because you see the great students.
Correct.
That's what
Correct.
makes you say that.
No, definitely. That shows the humility there. Do you then say the fact that you are in that 10% who is seeking, And there's that 80% bell curve that is somewhere in the middle, and then 10% who probably never make an attempt. Do you think all of this was destined to begin with?
No, actually, if you study Gita, right? In Gita, Krishna says there are three types of knowledge, right? Satvika knowledge, Rajasika knowledge, and Tamasa knowledge. And there are three types of souls who are attracted by those types of knowledges, right? And therefore, for a Satvika type of knowledge, he is interested in what is Yathartha, right? I mean, if something is Ayatartha, he is very, very uncomfortable accepting it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a Tamasika, on the other hand, he has no problem, you know, going against what has been laid out as Vidhi and Nisheda. And Nisheda becomes Vidhi to him. It makes no difference to him at all. And he's quite happy with that. Right? So if you go and see the times we live in, this what we call Kali Yuga, right? And we are still in Prathamapada, by the way. Kali Yuga, Prathamapada, we say that. So there is anyway. So in the times is such that ajnana, right, is pushed as jnana on us. That is the time we live in. So we have to be extremely careful in this, circumstances, because what was what is jnana itself is convoluted here, right? And so on. So and that's why as we don't what shall I say, as time progresses, right, the tamasa will increase, and that we do see around across the globe, right? So that is happening. And anyway, or how much in fact, Shriman Madhva says at one point, because these people who are after true knowledge, they are they are not in numbers. They are always in the minority. Right? Krishna also says, Sahasranam Manusheshu Kashchit Yatasiddhaye, makes it clear that this is not for all. It's not like a common kind of thing. It's rather rare. Yatatanam Siddhanam Kashchin Mam Veti Tattvataha. So it's a 1 in a million chance that somebody will actually get it, kind of. So given these facts, and given the fact that we are living in it, so there is much confusion out there. That will always. So that's why we need to put it under our inquiry. So there again, there are three types of people. So God, right, having created everything, right, he cannot just cater to one type of people, the Sattvikas. But that's not happening on this earth, right? Because it may be some divine loka that we don't know about. Maybe it's happening there. But in the world that we live in, if you go around and see, right, there is so much ignorance and so much wrong knowledge, which has been pushed as knowledge, right? And that is the world we live in. Now, who made it this way? Because there are people that need it. So God gives us exactly what we need, both for the Tamasa people, for the Rajasa people, and also for the Sattvika people. So when Vedavyasa wrote, right, so there are certain, what shall I say, the Gita, for example, the people take it, the same Gita, right? And if you are a sattvic soul, you will see the sattva part of it. You will, if you are a rajasic soul, you will get rajasic knowledge. If you are a tamasic soul, you will get tamasic knowledge. So it all depends on the person who is observing it. So individual, and that's why God has to dangle everything in front of everybody. That's why, the way I teach this to my students in my classes is, this world is like a buffet, like every other buffet, right? You go to a certain section of the buffet. If I am a vegetarian, and if I go to a hotel, where vegetarian and non-vegetarian. I don't even go to the non-vegetarian section, right? I don't know what is in there. I don't care. I just go to my section. That's it. And that's how this world is. But when creation has to happen for everybody, right? Because there are three types of souls here already. Everybody has, so everything has to be dangled in front of everybody. So there is all the great jnana that is also dangled in front of you. Then there is all the tamasic things that are also dangled in front of you. So if you are a tamasic soul, you get attracted there. If you are a sattvic soul, you get attracted to this and not to that. But whoever created it should have created both. That must be there.
Would that, um, but it is, do you really believe it's mutually exclusive? Meaning, tamasic soul is always stuck in that lane and cannot, by his or her behavior, samskaras or vasanas, come to the other side.
Oh, that's a nice question. Dushyat Tandurito Janaha, like Vadiraja says. You know, the guy who is in tamasic, this one, he is not going to ask that question, right? He's quite happy. Similarly, a sattvic person, a totally sattvic, he sees the work of God in everything, right? And that guy also is not going to question why are these tamasic people sitting there. And please remember, in spite of Shankara, in spite of Ramananda, in spite of Madhva showing up in this world, there is still tamasa left. There is, isn't it? How what did they all fail? No, that's not how it worked. That's because they were all sattvic people. Sattvic people don't change anything, by the way. They accept. They accept as things come to them. All the creativity, all the why not do it this way? Won't that be better? Kind of thing. That's all Rajasic people. So if somebody is asking, why can't God make this world different, make everybody happy? Why tamasa? Why leave it there? If he is something all powerful, why does he leave the sattvic people suffer? Why there is so much suffering? All these questions are asked by Rajasa people. Okay, because they are neither here nor that's why they are Raj. They're called Rajasa. Rajasa is a mixture of sattva and tamas, right? And because most of us human beings, we all fall into the Rajasa category, by the way. If you see, the classification of Rajasa, Tamasa in the Gita, right? The way Raghavendra Tirtha has explained all this. So the divinities, like Chaturmukha Brahma, right? The highest student that there is for all this Veda. He is sattva, 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 sattva. He classifies it under four heads. And then there is all this, sattva, 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 tamas. That would be Rudra, right? That's why there is some destruction associated with, and so on. And then you have, Manushya, among the humans, there are the best of humans, they're the worst of humans, and anybody in between. And we are all, somewhere in between. So for most part, at our level, at least, we are all Rajasa people. So we have some good qualities in us. That's why we are even thinking about all this. And then we want to be like the Sattvikas. But we can't be because, something pulls us down. We don't want to be like this Tamasa people. So, but we can't avoid. We do our, a little bit of whatever we can, where we can, and get away with it. So this Tamasa and Rajasa mixture is what we are all. And that's why we question, why can't, if God is all powerful, why can't he do it all? And all the creativity, like an air conditioner, for example. A sattvic people, like it is so hard in a place like Udupi, right? It's seashore now. Why couldn't they design an air conditioner? It's a simple question that many people ask. I mean, you say, Vedic seers knew this and that and all that, and they couldn't design an air conditioner for themselves because they were all the rishis were sattvic people. The sattvic people don't create anything. They just are quite happy if you leave them in the Himalayas, or if you leave them in a hot place like Udupi. They are still sattvikas. They're not going to change anything. Whereas a Rajasa is the one who is creative. In the Gita, right? Sattva sanjayate jnanam. That is the characteristics of it. He tries to understand things as they are. Then rajo ragatmakam vidhi. See that? That rajo, that rajas, the rajoguna, the characteristic is to raga. He's attached to things. He wants to change things. He wants to better this world. How can I make things better here? So he designs an air conditioner. So all creative activity happens because of Rajasa people. It's not because of course, the Tamasa people, they don't create anything. They just destroy stuff and they're thinking, how can I make a money out of all this? By cheating both these Rajasa people and Tamasa. That's why a scientist never makes good money. It's only Tamasa people that make a lot of money because they take the idea and sell it for profit or whatever they do, right? So, and therefore, if you look at this, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, the population at large, at the human level, they are all Rajasa people. So that's where we are.
How do you,
Yeah. Huh?
go ahead, sorry, complete it.
That's why we even ask questions like that, right?
How do you justify, because I was having this discussion, particularly with college students, and it comes through, which is all of this, even the discussion you and I are having now, comes from a level of some stability, meaning some of the basic needs are taken care. So, okay, now let's have a larger discussion like this. What about individuals who are still very busy in this human world, as you're saying, with struggling for the basic needs? For them, that is what comes first. How do I take care of my family? How do I have a roof there above my head? How do I get some shelter and food? How do you justify everything that we have been discussing so far, everything that the Vedas have written, Brahma Sutras have written, Gita has said, with that type of individuals? And some of it, to your definition, could be sattvic, tamasic, rajasic in them as well.
Oh, it's actually, if you look at the history, right? Great jnanis, right? If you look at their lives, there's a lot to learn from them. They, like Raghavendra Tirtha, best example, we can think of. Such a great jnani he was, right? And he was in utter dire poverty, right? That's how he grew up. But the adhikara, like we say, right, the fittedness for knowledge is so high in them that nothing bothers them, including the circumstance they are in. So it is all external to them. So intrinsically, if one needs it badly, let's put it in plain simple English, right? And Sri Madhva calls it as adhikara or fittedness for knowledge. If fittedness is there, you cannot stay put. So you will pursue that, irrespective of where you are thrown and in what circumstance you are in, right? So if that fittedness is not there, it doesn't matter, like, even though, for example, great, we say Pandita Putra, right? It's a joke actually, a great scholar, and look at his son. What happened here? Like, what happens there is because there's no fittedness for knowledge. Like the father, each one is on his own journey or her own journey here. We are talking at the soul level, individual soul level. So it doesn't matter. Just because you're somebody's son doesn't mean you will get the knowledge. But you're in a better situation because you're born into a family wherein, every day it happens. So you pick up few things because of that. Just as, if my mom or dad was teaching music, just by being in that house, I would pick up music. It's natural. But if I had the inclination, I would take it further. If I didn't have, then Balmurali's kids. Right? Do you know who they are? Or have you heard them singing? No, like that. So it happens. So if it is not there, it is not there. So when it comes to path of knowledge, right, it is highly, highly individualistic and highly, highly based on fittedness for that knowledge. Not everybody is fit for everyone. Not everything appeals to everybody either. If that is true, then the whole Vedanta would be wrong. And the very fact that if you look at the world, not everybody is even interested in everything. That's how it should be. Because
And
there are different types of people, there are different
yeah.
interests, and yoyat shadda sayeva saha, Krishna says that. Right? Look at the interest that an individual has. That tells who he is, because intrinsically is yoyat shadda, shraddhamayoyam purusho yoyat shadda sayeva saha. Right? This is 17.3. In that he says, according to one's interests, it's based on his own Shraddhamaya. That is the nature of his soul. Based on that, he will get an interest. That is why circumstances only plays to some extent, right?
But and the environment around that individual, as you have said, can help blossom that intrinsic nature of that individual.
Correct.
Do you believe in karma?
There is nothing to believe here. Belief and knowledge are two separate entities. Okay,
I'm
because
glad you said that. I'm
because
really glad you said that. Seriously, I'm glad.
belief
Yeah.
has actually, where there is belief,
Yeah.
which means there is no knowledge. Where there is knowledge, there is no need to believe. So,
So glad you
two
said
are
that.
quite
Yeah.
opposites. So, yeah, karma is, put in simple, plain terms. You are what you are today because of what you have been doing. Simple. That is karma, right? Which is true, right? I mean, it has nothing to do with Hindus or Christians or Muslims. Everybody it applies. Karma is across the board. They may not call it karma, but that's what it is. And so, of course, Upanishads, take it to another level, right? They say this Atma, Jivatma, right? He gets a desire. Then yat kratur bhavati. Yat kratur bhavati tat karma kurute. Yat karma kurute tat abhisampadhyata iti. Okay? Yam kamayate tat kratur bhavati. That's where it comes out. So you make a preparation for what interests you have. There is a desire in you to do something, and you prepare for that. Once you prepare for that, you do actually do action, take action on that. And then finally, based on what you did, that result of that action sticks back to you. And that's who you are today. And we have been doing this for many, many births, not just this one birth. In the bigger, timeline of a Jivatman, this 100 years is just a dot. So we shouldn't restrict a soul, just at least not Hindus. We all are aware of that. Bhagavad Gita, 101. So we are Vyakta Madhyani Bharata, he says. Avyakta Nidananyeva Tatraka Paridevana, he says. Isn't it? So why do you repent for somebody who is anyway going to die? That's what Sri Krishna says. So you're there for like 100 years, show up as a dot in the big timeline. That's it. And so we all have been doing from in the Vedanta, right, has accepted beginningless karma, right? Anadi karma, right? Some people call it anadi avidya, like anadi maya supto yada jiva prabudhyate. One of the Upanishads say that. So this jivatman starts out right? In Anadi Avidya. It's been sitting there. And God has to create something, install Veda, send all the Jnanis first, then make you be born in a certain lineage, doesn't matter which lineage you are born into. And you will pick up from them, from your surroundings, from your teachers, right? You learn and you make your progress. And so he has given you an opportunity to do all this. And if you are interested in that, you will pick up. If you are a Tamasic soul, you will see how I can destroy this. That's all you're thinking. If you're a Rajasic soul, you're neither here nor there. One, you take one step forward, two steps backwards, and go nowhere. That's why you're a Rajasic. We call it Nitya Samsari in this one. So they are kind of circling there itself. And then this Tamasic, there is eternal damnation. Yes, we do. There is eternal. If you follow Gita, Krishna Mama Prapyaya Kaunteya Tatoyati Adamangatim, he says. So he says there are some people who will never ever reach me. They will be eternally damned. You know, in English they call it eternal damnation. We call it Andantamas. Like for example, Kali, Kalanemi, and those are the few souls that are specifically mentioned. Like Duryodhana was Kali, right? He was the incarnation of Kali, and people like that. And then there, on the other extreme, we have all the great jnanis that are all they are also there. So there is a spectrum of people here, and accordingly, there will be a spectrum of philosophies as well. And based on your interests, what appeals to you, you will take. But they all have to be there. That's why a Charvaka was sent here. That's why a Buddha was sent here. That's why a Jaina was sent here. That's why a Shankara was sent here. So every one of them have come here, done their bit to help these various individuals make their own progress.
Well, great discussion on this topic. It was good. It was good. Now, let me take a couple more. By the way, this discussion has been so engaging. I didn't believe it's already 45 minutes since we started the discussion. But let's take a few more, and then we'll wrap up. So, what you were describing, karma, clearly it's not about belief. It is what it is in what you do. As you are on the path of inquiry, which you have been, don't you feel a joy in this path of inquiry?
Oh, definitely. Jnana definitely brings ananda, right? Because in fact, both this is all philosophers agree. This, the ajnana brings dukkha, right? In fact, Shankara says ajnana transforms itself into dukkha. He makes it upadana karana for dukkha. Is ajnana, he says. That's a pretty powerful statement there. So so dhira, like the Upanishads call it dhiras. Iti sushrama dhirana amnena stadvyaja chakshari. When the dhira word comes, dhihi ramate, those who enjoy knowledge, those are the happy people because their enjoyment is in knowledge. It comes from there, it is involved in that, it leads to that ananda. So ananda is throughout the process of knowledge.
For somebody then on this path of inquiry where you have this ananda and you are on that journey, what is the role of moksha then?
Well,
it almost becomes
moksha
like a shortcut.
Moksha is actually, there are two ways to understand it. One is the moksha is the highest state that anyone can be. So not everybody has the same moksha, right? If you study Taittiriya, right, it asks it as a question, right? And the answer is no, not everybody gets the same moksha, right? So each one, is there any one special person or special moksha? It says yes. Who is the one single letter answer for three questions there, right? And so those who have studied Taittiriya will know what I'm talking about. So there, do Ajnanis and Jnanis, both of them go to moksha? If only Jnanis go to moksha, do they all go the same way? Or is there one guy, one special person that goes in a special way to moksha? So there are three questions here. And who is the single letter answer given? And being Upanishads, they have to be like that. So that an inquiry can begin on this. Why did it reply like that? What does it mean? So an inquiry begins, and so you will get your knowledge based on it. And so what we are saying is, in your highest potential, right, the highest good, let's call it, that is moksha. So for each one, it's a different thing. That can happen when you know the highest, which is Paramatma, right? Paramatma is the highest. Unless you know the highest, how are you going to get to your highest state? Not possible. So knowing worldly things, that's why it doesn't lead you to moksha, because they are not the highest. So there is something called God, knowing which, knowing God as the highest, that is the first step, will lead you to your highest state. Knowing God as blissful leads to your bliss. Knowing God as blemishless leads to your blemishlessness. That's how it works. Yet, however you do upasana on God, that's how you become. This is also a Upanishadic conclusion. So based on all this, if you put it all together, so each one, moksha is where you take your exit. Say, this is it, I'm done. It doesn't mean you understood God completely, but this is all the capacity you had for the knowledge of God, and you're done. It's like any other education. Like some of us drop out of high school and college, we are done. Some of us drop out of college and say we are done. Some of us pursue a master's, then we say we are done. Some of us get one or two PhDs and say we are done. So at some point you're going to, that doesn't mean knowledge ended there. It's just that you took an exit. That is exactly what moksha is. So we all take an exit from the path of knowledge of God at some point. Whatever capacity we had, we accordingly we got that knowledge, and we cannot get any more. So we reach a saturated state. So we neither go forward nor backward. We just stay in that natural saturated state of knowledge, right? Direct knowledge of God. So, and that's what moksha really is.
Do you then link that saturated place that each individual reaches to a physical place, even if it's not material in nature, but still a gradation, a physical, for I'm using, because of the English language, I have no other choice but to use the name physical place.
Yeah, and I got it. But
Yeah,
actually, if you study again, because these are all transcendental
correct.
ideas, anything of the transcendent nature, right? Agama is the only pramana here, right? And therefore, moksha, dharma, right? God, all these are transcendental entities. And therefore, anything of the nature of transcendental means atindriya. Right? Any atindriya, you can only get it from agama. But agama, without jignasa, it will not create a definite knowledge. Agama is very vague. It's not like pratyaksha. If I call this a blue pen, everybody agrees it's a blue pen. There is no qualms about it. But agama is not like that. It's very interpretable, right? People take different angles for the same sentence. They get it differently. Starting from the same Veda, great thinkers have arrived at different conclusions. All this is there. But jignasa is the one that makes all that vagueness go away and brings definite knowledge there. Idamitham jnanamiti jignasayaha prayojanam, like Jayadeva puts it. Right? So once you have that, you have after that you don't get any doubts about what you used to get. Like in any other, like algebra, right? When you were in fifth grade, you had doubts about fifth grade algebra. But when you went to high school, you don't get those doubts anymore. But you have high school level doubts now. When you go to college, all your high school doubts went away. Somehow you don't get those doubts anymore. What happened here? You kept intact with the study and you pursued it and you made progress. So the progress, the indicator for progress in knowledge is you don't get the kinds of doubts that you used to get about anything, about karma, about free will, about God, or anything other. If it works for algebra, it should work for Vedanta as well. Why not?
Thank you for that. No, thank you for that. Last one question, and then we'll wrap it up. And briefly, in a minute or so, if you could share, for a person, again, I go back to that individual who hasn't spent the time, who's not getting into all of this, right? That first step, as you said, out of the 4 steps, the first step,
faith,
of faith. How would even one develop that? Because it's, unless you're saying faith is inbuilt, unless you're saying that, how would, for a person who hasn't even thought about this, but he comes to a session, then how would that person develop? Again, in a minute or two, briefly. And we'll have a bigger discussion on it later.
If you really think about it, I will give you Vedanta answers.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Because I'm not giving you a social type of answer. Because in sociology, it's a different answer probably given, and I'm not a sociologist. From a Vedanta perspective, right? There is nothing in this world that is unplanned. It is always there is a plan. We may not know what the plan is. I may not know what the plan for me is in this world. I may not know it. But there is somebody who knows. That's why that all-knowing, all-powerful, what we have called God, he makes each individual be born in a circumstance and get in contact with some other personality who can pull him out of there or push him backwards further. We have seen all that, right? So it all depends on that individual and what the plan for him is, right? Krishna vita na vichalayet. Gita says that, isn't it? So, Raghavendra Tirtha, while writing for that, he says, a knowledgeable person, right? When he sees that intrinsically some people are incapable of knowledge or they hate knowledge, right? So there is no need for them to change and bring them back to the right path. Na vichalayat. Don't disturb them. They are there for a purpose. Let them be there. Right. Like that. So but somebody who is changeable, right? He has come to you. You should change. You should give your 100% to make sure and help him out. That's everybody's business. That's how our teachers did it for us. They could have ignored us.
Exactly. Yeah.
They did not. They took it upon themselves to do it. So it's our duty to give it.
Very well said there, sir, because I think providing that forum, that platform is what it is. Exactly. Thank you so much for this discussion. I would love to go deeper on a couple of other topics at a later date. Particularly, I want to go deeper on incarnation at a later date.
Definitely.
Because anything. Big subject. Thank you so much for this, and I'm really hoping that this drives, again, it's all about perspectives and trigger some thoughts in those individuals who want to pursue it, of course.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Krishna Arpanamastu.